welcome to Antaranga's Wednesday video series. In our previous video, we spoke about self-love. So, a few of us might have a few questions, especially like if I have too much of self-love, does it make me selfish, a narcissist, or a self-centered, self-absorbed person? Today, we're going to talk about the differences of all of these. So, we'll talk about differences with three main things: selfish, self-love, and narcissism. Narcissism, we have categorized the self-centered and self-absorbed people. First, we'll talk about narcissism. Now, narcissism is an extreme sense of self-admiration on a grand scale of oneself. Few characteristics that are very prominent in a narcissist is they lack empathy, they're entitled, they're arrogant, there is inability to cope up with disappointments, and a very strong feature, very prominent one, is they seek validation. They are in high need of approval. Now, why is this? Because in their inner core, they are emotionally fragile. They cannot look at themselves. So, on the outer core, they're very charming, charismatic, confident, and even successful. Some of the CEOs and celebrities are narcissists. But in the inner core, they are very fragile, as I said. They cannot look at themselves, they feel very devastated, and they need validation. There is a hunger inside to feel fulfilled, and for that, they seek outer validation. Now, how is a person with self-love? The person is very aware of his worth, his needs, his goals. The person is also aware of the weaknesses they consider, the challenges that they have, and would work towards it. And all of this awareness brings in a lot of humility, compassion, and empathy for oneself, which in turn helps you to have all these compassion, humility for others as well. Let's take a simple example. We all work in a workplace. So, in a workplace, how would a narcissist approach a project and how a person with self-love approach a project? A narcissist would toil in and out, day in and night, work hard to make the best project. But what is the intent? The intent is very simple. They just want all the appreciation. Everybody has to say kudos, you're the best, nobody could have done this, you're at top level, and they want all that appreciation. It is not about the good job or the good work, it's about somebody saying that they're the best at the job. The outer validation, the outer approval. Now, how a person with self-love approach this? The person is aware of his strengths, weaknesses, would work to do a good job, not for a validation. The person would take time to relax, refuel, exercise, and also build connection with other members, have a rapport, to have a deeper meaning in their life. Because it's not only important to just work, but also important to foster deeper connections with people who matter in your lives. But as a person with narcissism lacks self-love, he or she would go to any extent and dismiss anybody or anything that comes in their way of their desired award. That is the difference between narcissism and self-love. Somebody, when I recently had a conversation with regarding this, told me a very beautiful line. Self-love isn't a symptom of narcissism. Whereas narcissism is the absence of self-love. That's the difference between narcissism and self-love. Sadly, in today's culture, where in most places, physical appearance, wealth, and power is considered as self-love, and that in turn makes them feel that abundance of self-love is narcissism, whereas it is not there. Again, as I said in the previous video, for self-love, you don't need an external entity. In narcissism, we see that we need an external entity so that they give us an approval that makes us fulfilled. Whereas in self-love, you feel fulfilled and grateful by yourself, by the person you are, however you are, whoever you are. The gratitude comes from within, so that fulfillment is already felt. Now, we'll go to the third one. Self-love we already spoken about, so we'll go to the third one, that is selfish. Now, if you take the literal meaning, that is the dictionary meaning of selfishness, it means that you place your needs ahead and do not consider others' needs, and so you basically think only about yourself. Now, narcissism is a very extreme. As I said, you need it. You need a self approval, whereas in selfishness, you don't need an approval from others, but you think about your personal interest. Now, if you check out for any and sit down and think about any situation and think about selfishness, selfishness is defined based on morality, and morality means values, and values are different for different people. That means perspective. So something that is right for you may not be right for me. Something that is right for me may not be right for you. So, can you call everything to be selfish? Can you define something as this is selfish and a person should not be doing it? Well, it is difficult. And let's take basic examples, right? Best example is the flight attendants example, who tell us that during emergency situation, take the oxygen mask first and then give your near and dear ones the oxygen mask. It is right? If you do not have life, how would you give? How would you help somebody else? If you are not alive, how would you help somebody else? Now, unfortunately, our culture, our beliefs, our movies make us the hero if you do a sacrifice of a part of yourself for somebody else, and that notion has created a lot of misconceptions or some perceptions rather about selfishness. Now, something that is selfish is different for different people, as I said. Let's take another example. Now, let's say a kid is really passionate about dance and he wants to pursue it as a career. But the parents say, you can't do this, we will be unhappy, and society is going to talk about this, you will not have a career, and etc. etc. So now there are two things to this. From a boy's perspective, should I take what my parents said and make them feel happy? Now you're doing a sacrifice and trying to keep your family happy. But will the boy be happy? No. From a parent's perspective, they're thinking about the boy's career and they want the career be financially stable and all of that. Are they being selfish? For some of us, the boy is right. For some of us, the parent is right. So who's being selfish? It's a very tricky situation. Sometimes I think about this. Parents' love or somebody near or dear ones, right? So if you say that I want to sacrifice my love or my passion for something or something that I love to do for my parents so that I see them to be happy. If you really sit down and think, that means that you want to see, if you see your parents happy, you will be happy. So basically, you're being selfish of your happiness. Is it so? So, as I said, selfishness is very, very perspective, relative to people. It can be different for different people. So, it depends on your values, depends on morality. But when we do a comparison with self-love, how is it different? Well, again, we come back to the same thing. To call yourself selfish or to call yourself, that you're doing something, a selfish act, there is an external entity involved. You do it for yourself or you do it for somebody else. There's an external entity involved. But for self-love, you do not need an external entity. It is about you, how you feel, about how you are feeling within yourself, about yourself. And that literally reflects on the work that you do. So the act of selfishness doesn't really come under self-love. So, as I said, if you see the moral base for all of these three things is that in self-love there is no entity, in narcissism and in selfishness there is an external entity which describes it, without which there is no selfishness or narcissism. But in self-love, it's all about you accepting yourself and appreciating yourself the way you are. So, these are my differences about self-love, narcissism, and selfishness. So the source for all this content that I had are a lot of places. If you go to psychologytoday.com and search for narcissism, there are amazing articles. A lot of them, I read all of them and I've consolidated and shown it to you. On selfishness, there is a very interesting article called as Good, Bad and Neutral Selfishness by John Johnson. It is in Psychology Today again. If you want to learn more about narcissism, there is a very famous clinical psychologist, author, professor called as Ramani Drusala. If you search for videos, she'll have a number of videos from dating a narcissist, how to get out of a narcissist, from a parents being narcissist. So very interesting videos going out there. I hope this video helps you. Let me know your feedback. Let us know how you feel about it, and hope that this helps you develop your inner self. Thank you so much.